So, hello, comrades. Today with me is Comrade Max from CPGB Communist Party of Great Britain, Marxist-Leninist. As you see, this is the seat internet of this side of this organization. Hello, comrades. Could you present your statement? What is your position to the situation in Ukraine?
Well, briefly, well, many people on the west side call it an invasion. Um, I've been following it for years, the situation in Donbass, and even though there was technically a ceasefire, there's been a slow burning conflict for years, and according to the OECD, I believe something like 13,000, 14,000 people have died so far since 2014 there. So the idea that Russia is just starting this war, the way that the media frenzy has presented in the last few weeks, I don't buy that. Um, to me, I see it more like Russia is trying to end the war in Ukraine, and it's being pushed. And this was inevitable. It's been pushed from the west. It's been provoked from the west, and Russia has finally responded. And I'm sure we'll get into more details, but that's my position.
Okay. So now this is two members of your party. This is George Galloway from Workers' Party. He was invited to the Russia Today RT, and also Jyoti Brar, Workers' Party of Britain. Also, she was very often in RT. And now RT is closed. It is censorship in all the Western countries. What do you think about this?
I notice a difference, the way that the West is censoring media and the way that Russia is censoring media. So um, recently, or first of all, the West is the one leading in the censorship war. They're taking the first steps, and Russia is retaliating. Um, but the excuse, what impacted me is, the reason they give for banning RT, for example, is it's just Russian disinformation. It's Kremlin propaganda. It's lies because it's Russian, and that's it. We don't have to prove that they're lies. We don't have to prove in any legal way that it's lies. We just ban it because it's telling their point of view. Whereas in Russia, what they did was ban um, false news. Let's say they went for misinformation, which obviously has to be proved in court. And as a result, Western media like BBC, CNN, and so on have closed operations in Russia and left. But it's interesting to note that Russia didn't target them, any organized, any company specifically. They said we don't want false information to be spread in this, about this war. Um, and to me, that's a difference. At least on the surface, they're trying to give the impression that they care about truth and don't want to ban any specific media, no matter what country it's from. So um, seems a bit more open-minded than the Western approach to me.
Yes, and I have to say that, for example, in the first day of this operation, there was the information about the Ukrainian soldiers in the island of Snakes. And the Western media said that these soldiers were killed because they said to the Russian "fuck you," and after the Russian killed all these people, and they starting to say, "Ah, this is the heroes from the island of snakes," and what the Russian media, what the Sputniks what was the response of the Sputnik? Sputnik published a video with these soldiers which are alive, and they are going home. And I think that it was one of the reason that this lie, this primitive lie that Russian are primitive barbarians who killed everybody, it's not working. It's not working when you have alternative media who very easy are showing that this is the lie, and how you can say about a lot of people that they are died when they are still living, and there are in these few days of this operation there are a lot of examples of the lies of the Ukrainian propagandists. And also, of course, I understand that in the time of war, it is also the information war. But we are living in the Western countries, and we have right to know the two sides of this conflict, not only the situation, not only the media from West, because as you see, that they are lying.
I mean, in their mind, they absolutely have the right to force everyone to just one point of view. I think it's, you know, with the banning of RT, they're going to ban more stuff probably in the coming weeks, and yeah, it's good in a way because it's waking people up. It might increase. I mean, George is saying that RT viewership might increase. VPNs are becoming popular, so there are ways to get around it, and a lot of maybe people who are real liberals will have a problem with it, um, and people who are sympathetic to the truckers or who watch Fox News. You've now got Tucker Carlson, for example, quoting the Black Panthers and saying that you scratch a liberal and you find a fascist, and all these kind of things. With a view. And if you listen to Tucker Carlson on Ukraine, he won't go all the way, but he'll frame it from American people's interests, and make the case that this is America's, fault, and that it's a bad idea for Americans, and that they should not support this war, and that NATO should stop trying to expand, and so on. So that there's within the Western media itself, I think Fox News might be leading the way to, a better.
Do you see this comment?
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me better now?
I hear you, but I think it's better that you will talk a little louder, like George Galloway.
Sure.
He always he's.
I can't talk like George.
Oh, okay, but no, it's better.
But I can. Is it better now?
Yes, it's better. Okay, so now I want to know your opinion about this photo. This photo was made. It is the Polish-Belarusian border. For people who didn't know what was the situation, I will summarize that from August until I think January, there was a lot of 3,000-4,000 people in the Polish-Belarusian border. And Polish soldiers, there was engaged 15,000 of Polish soldiers to protect Polish borders. And as you see in this photo, the Polish soldiers are using water cannons to fight with these migrants, to not cross the Polish borders. And could you explain me and everybody who listening what is the difference? Why the migrants who came from the Afghanistan or Iraq, the country which was attacked by Polish people, the Polish army was occupied by Polish soldiers before. Now, when they want to came to Poland, there are a lot of violence used by the Polish military force, and and now we have a lot of the refugees from Ukraine, and the situation is totally different than when the white people from Ukraine want to cross the Polish border. Everybody is happy. When the people from Iraq, Afghanistan, or other Muslim countries want to came to Poland, they are treated like enemy. Could you explain me what is why is this?
I haven't thought about this, so I'm improvising. I it sounds like there might be some racism behind it, but I don't I wouldn't want to start with that. I wouldn't want to make that call because people, when they talk about Ukraine, this war being the first war in Europe since World War II, they often forget about Serbia, and NATO's war on Yugoslavia in the 90s, and you know they were white as well. Um, so I think it's there's bigger political interests behind this. In the case of Belarusia, the real story that the West made out of this was that Belarusia is using these migrants to try to attack the EU, and that therefore it's a hostile country. Now, this was happening in the context of the coup against Lukashenko failing, and the EU trying to therefore demonize, since they couldn't get Lukashenko, to align with the West. Um, they went for option B, which is Belarus is now an enemy. So there's that. And now with Ukraine, it's kind of the opposite thing. Ukraine is fighting Russia, unlike Belarus. So Ukraine is a friend. Now, it is true that the migrants coming through Belarus were not blonde with blue eyes, and not white, and mostly
And not Christian.
from the Middle East, and not Christian, mostly from the Middle East. But then Russia is white and Christian, and Russia is being the biggest target right now. With the hysteria in the West, if I were to give it one word, I would say Russophobia. But Russians are Christian and white, so that's why
Yes, yes, but you know, in the in 17th century, the Ukraine was a part of Poland, and in this time, the King Zygmunt III he introduced something which is named Unia Brzeska. Unia Brzeska, it was a union with the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. It was union of Orthodox Church in Ukraine with Catholic Church, with Roman, with Vatican, with Pope. So this Orthodox Church in Ukraine is collaborating with Vatican, so it's good Orthodox Church. But the Orthodox Church in Russia is independent than Vatican, so they are enemy. So it is very very big difference in between Ukraine and Russia from the Western Europe perspective.
okay. But okay. So you've made a religious point, but I'm still not convinced about the racial aspect. And
No,
maybe you
no,
can
no.
talk about.
I try to understand. I don't have why one day they said that 3,000 migrants it is something which can destroy the Polish state, because they are using the arguments like this, that this 3,000 or 5,000 people, when if we open borders for them, they will destroy the Polish state. And now they are open borders with Ukraine. Already, I think that there is the 700,000 Ukrainian who came to Poland only in 1 week. 1 week, maybe 1 week, maybe 10 days. So it is the number. I don't know.
This is the thing, right? It's scary, but it's happening because Ukraine is a NATO ally. It's fighting against Russia right now directly, and all NATO countries, including Poland, are totally on board. And it would be very difficult for them to argue, on Ukraine's side in a war against Russia, at the same time as denying, helping the Ukrainians fleeing. So it's open doors to Ukrainians because they're good guys, um, whereas they can turn their back on migrants coming through countries that are not NATO friendly. In the case of Belarus, they try to spin the story, But if refugees from Iraq or Syria were to try and enter through Ukraine, actually maybe they would also stop them and make some arguments.
But
But to be honest,
from the
Russophobia, I think, is the biggest um, type of identity problem right now in the West.
Yes, you mentioned Russophobia. It is the Polish football team Legia Warszawa, Warsaw equipe, and this is the Huy. It is Dick. So they insulted the president of the Russia Federation, and we need to mention that in Poland we have two law that it is forbidden to insult the leader of the country. In Poland, it is using for Vatican. If you insult the Pope, they will condemn you. You can maybe go to prison or pay a lot of money, because Pope is the head of the Vatican country. But this law is for all the president of all the country. But now everybody can shout in the Poland, Putin chuj, Putin kurwa, and using the most primitive, the most vulgar word about Putin, and nobody care.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, even a U.S. senator the other day tweeted that Putin should be assassinated. So if leaders have got, remember when Joe Biden called Putin a killer, and
Yes.
the world went, oh, "You're not supposed to say that," Yeah, it's if you're seeing it from those people, then it's gonna definitely come up on the street.
Okay, now I would like to show you something, and it is the biggest Polish media. The biggest Polish media, I choose only three, but I think that it is something for all the media, all the biggest corporate media. As you see here in the left up, you have the Gazeta.pl, and it is normally it is red, but now they changed this for the Ukrainian flag. So this is one thing. It is one of the biggest newspaper in Poland. This is the one of the biggest seat internet in Poland. On it, also they changed the logo to flag Ukraine, and it is the biggest news TV station, TVN 24. we have to remember that a few weeks ago there was a question for banning this television because it is American television in Poland, and the ruling party Law and Justice wanted to delegalize this television. But you see, all these media platform now they try to show how they are solidar with Ukraine. If in Britain there is something like this also.
Yeah, absolutely. All the mainstream media is fully in line. Um, it's a bit it's with the pandemic. We got to see how mainstream in UK began to get aligned. So the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, all the mainstream, they started. This word woke, how they're woke. So there was kind of a witch hunt against, well, about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, but then there was also on public, TV and public spaces, um, on the transgender question, on Palestine or Hamas, on lots of different issues. They've been clamping down on freedom of opinion, for people to have different positions, and it's been happening over years where people lose their jobs. There was David Miller, for example, a Bristol University professor, got fired for being against the state of Israel and supporting the Palestinian people and being anti-Zionist, let's say. Um, so that was equated with anti-Semitism, and a professor lost his job. And this happened last year. So they, it's not surprising to see now, as it's kept escalating with the war in Ukraine, that that it's become tighter than ever.
Yes, but I think that all these things which you mentioned before, this is the big question. But this hysteria with Russia is something much, much, much more bigger, especially in Poland. If you said or publish in social media or I don't know where something which is I don't say support Russia because it is impossible in Poland. But if you ask question, for example, how many how many money it will how many money Polish state have to spend for the refugees? The question like this: normal economic question that there are hundreds of thousand people who cross the border, and the government announced that there will be financial support for these refugees. I support this, yes, because I am human and I am solidar with people who don't want participating in the war. But I ask question. For example, my mother-in-law, she is in pension now, uh, and she didn't work in her life many years because she she had five daughters, and she stayed at home many years with children. So now when she take pension, this pension is very low, very low. And they announced that Ukrainian refugees in Poland, uh, everybody who invite Ukrainian refugee in his home, he will have 1,200 zloty. So it will be bigger money for my mother. It will be bigger money than my mother-in-law have every month. and
Yeah.
it's something very very strange. And also, of course, people have to they can ask question, but you can't ask question, because if you ask question, you are a Russian whore, you are the agent of the Putin, agent of Kremlin, etc., etc. So we have very big hysteria.
Yeah, I think in a war it's normal, you know, not supporting your side becomes equated to supporting the other side.
Yes, but
So,
it
you
is
know,
not the Poland is not participating in this war. We don't have war with Ukraine, no, with Russia, and we are not
it's
in
not even in NATO.
alliance with yes,
Yeah,
but we are not
exactly.
officially in the alliance with Ukraine. And from the logic perspective, if you think about refugees, there will be election in Ukraine. Sooner or later there will be election, and if all the people who hate Putin they will flee Ukraine, the Putin will won this election, because everybody who are against him they will go away. So legally, in democratic way, new government of Ukraine will be better, will be pro-Russian. So mm,
Yeah,
maybe it's better like this.
yeah. I think you just pointed out a reason to be optimistic.
Yes, and
So
also,
yeah, yeah,
also, also from the war perspective, if because um majority of these refugees in Poland, this is the refugees from the Western Ukraine. Western Ukraine, where never any Russian soldier came, because the Russian soldiers are in East Ukraine, not in the West Ukraine. But these people are now the borders are open, so they profit, they cross. Of course, I am the economic migrant, so I don't have problem with this, but I understand why the people don't want to live in Ukraine, because it is the oligarchic, very poor state where we have the very very strong fascist movement. So I understand these people that they are fleeing, but from the military perspective, everybody say now, Zelensky, he called the people from every country came to Ukraine, fight with Russia, fight with Russia, fight with Russia. The better solution for Zelensky is said to these people, don't flee our country, take war and fight for our country. So but
this is
they
this is what he did though. I mean, I think one of the big reasons why people are leaving en masse is the mandatory conscription. Um, you know, so they've freaked out their civilian population by doing things like, you know, conscripting men between 18 years old and retirement age into the army. And if they catch them trying to leave, they just arrest them and take them to the front and give them a gun. They've been giving guns to civilians, and you know, this is just terrifying people because most people don't want to fight. I mean, that's just the reality, and they're scared that they're going to be forced to. You know, and I've seen reports that they're putting sort of heavy, you know, artillery and tanks and equipment in residential areas in cities, and you know, among civilian populations in cities, so that well, using them as a human shield, essentially. Um, so I think that civilians are quite scared. Um,
Yes, we have to admit this is the terrorist strategy. The
Yeah,
Ukrainian militia use use these civilian people like human shields, and everybody in the Western countries are happy with this. And could you say me, if now in the British media you have or maybe I will change photo. Is there can you find something about the battalion Azov? It is
you
possible
can.
or not?
Yeah, not on mainstream media. Well, actually, no, that's not true. There have been a few mainstream reports on Azov. They were also talked about in a Vice documentary. Um, you know Vice, this
Uh,
channel.
yes, but
You can
it
find it
is
on YouTube.
yeah,
But
YouTube, yeah, but I'm speaking about this main media.
yeah, okay. So the BBC did a short report, like a video, like a mini documentary about Ukraine. This was years ago. I haven't seen it in years, but essentially they were showing the training camps of the Azov battalion, and they interviewed a guy, showed a few tattoos. They showed in the video that these people, might be Nazis or far right. It was kind of implied. The cameraman who was there talking to the guy seemed a bit worried, but throughout the video, they were making it seem like a happy summer camp. So they were trying to. It was a weird documentary because it seemed like the point of it was to make it look innocent and good, a bit like the BBC videos from 1930s showing the Hitler Youth summer camps, as a wonderful thing. Um, it was a bit similar with Ukraine, the kind of reporting that was done. So they
So
didn't hide it completely, but they made it look very innocent.
for the people who didn't hear, the battalion Azov, it is the right-wing militia in the Ukrainian army here in this photo. And as you see, in the middle we have the flag of the Azov. In the right we have different flag of the Third Reich, and in the left we have flag of the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. So three flag which I hate, all of them. I think the most dangerous now is this flag in the left. Because all this war, it is because of Anschluss, they tried to Anschluss Ukraine to the NATO. And if in the British media they said something about the neo-Nazi in Ukraine.
On the mainstream, they are quiet about it now. And if they do, I mean, they mentioned, and there was, for example, some videos that they did where they were showing. This was just before the invasion date, quote unquote. A week before things actually started. They were showing the Azov battalion training old women and children how to use guns and shoot. Uh, and they were doing this in a kind of glorified way. It reminded me of the Warsaw Uprising, this kind of idea of look how brave these people are fighting, everyone joining in, so heroic. And they didn't comment. They showed the Azov bags, so you can pause the video and see that this is the Azov battalion doing this, but they didn't even mention it. And so that was commented on, but totally ignored by mainstream. So they used to talk about it after 2014. They tried to make it look positive, but since in recent months, they haven't just talked about it. You get it discussed in more fringe, some independent journalists or publications, but not in the mainstream.
in Polish media now they try to solve the history that because the Volodymyr Zelensky came from have a Jewish origin, it's a proof that it can't be Nazi state. But in the same time, Zelensky he ordered to that this year, 2022 in Ukraine, it is the year of this guy in this monument. It is Stepan Bandera, the 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 biggest leader of the Ukrainian Nazi organization OUN UPA. And it is officially because this monument it is not really a monument built by the some extremists. No, this monument is built a little in Soviet style also. Is built by the Ukrainian state.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what is so alarming. I mean, you can find individual neo Nazis in different countries, but there's a difference between having individuals with tattoos running around and having paramilitary groups and officials in government and you know marches with lit lanterns and all this kind of stuff, you know, totally integrated with a state which is totally fine with it, if not encouraging it. Um, so you know, it is a I call Ukraine now a fascist state. Not everyone in the state has to be a fascist, but to me, they've lost control to the West and the fascist groups in their own country. I think that
Do you know who is this guy here?
the one that's looking up,
These old guys here.
no,
This is the veteran from SS Galician who are marching in Lvov a few years ago. SS Galician. This is the photo from the Second World War. And we need to remember that SS Galician is responsible for the this is the official cemetery of SS Galician in near Lvov. And SS Galician is responsible for Holocaust, for killing Jews, especially in Lvov. They are helping. And after, when the Red Army take the Ukraine, they came to the west. They came to Poland. They participated, for example, for the destroying Warsaw. That after the Warsaw Uprising, which was the fight between Poles and Germans. The Germans, when they finished this military operation, it was Ukrainian who came to destroy because this was the order of Hitler. Warsaw have to be destroyed, and they destroyed building after building. And if there were some civilians rest in Warsaw because there was an order that everybody have to go out from city, also they killed them. So
yeah,
it is sad history, and it is the it's today. It's the Ukrainian Orthodox priest who baptized the neo-Nazis. Okay, comrade. So I think that we can finish this subject because it's a little tragic situation. Could you say something about your organization? Something what's changed in the last few weeks, few months? Do you have some optimistic information about your activity?
I mean, for me personally, I'm just I'm a bit on the fringe since I'm abroad. I'm just writing some bits and pieces here and there, and following more or less what's going on. Yeah, I just saw the comment. Um, shall I
Yes, this is
respond?
the tactic of ISIS, but we need to
Indeed.
remember that ISIS was destroyed in Syria by the Russians, so Russian are know these tactics. But it is very, very bad information for the civilians.
Yeah.
So
Let's hope that it goes well, and once the dust can settle, um, there will be peace in Ukraine, and it will not go. Let's hope it goes more like Syria and less like Libya. Um,
mm,
so we were talking about, yeah, my party. So the censorship is on the rise. You know, George, the leader of the Workers' Party, is still doing his Moat show. Um, we have not been affected yet by by any censors, luckily. Um, in terms of local politics, the Workers' Party is still trying to get a foot in the door in elections. So they're running for local elections all across the country, and the Communist Party is following the this situation in Ukraine. Um, it's kind of the topic of the day. So there's a lot being published. We've made contacts with a journalist called Dean O'Brien, who who's a British man who went to Ukraine and has been documenting what was going on there. So he came back to UK and we interviewed him, and he did a talk in London.
maybe
Yeah, if you,
I will show this because for people who don't know. Um,
that's the one.
Anybody, I get paid for anybody. I'm just a normal person. I've got a 9 to 5 job in Coventry, and using my own holiday, I pay for my own travel out there, and just go out and just report, just wander around the streets with my camera. There are no Russian soldiers in eastern Ukraine. They are just local militia, and they're fighting against far right, Western backed. Uh, well, they're the terrorists, really.
And
They're the
you
ones.
back those Nazi forces then?
Of course, the West were only too happy to keep sending lethal aid. We're also sending massive amounts of money out there as well. So we're kind of backrolling this conflict, keeping it going.
What have you seen there recently that you want people of this country to know? If there is one thing you want to convey to them.
It's the people, the average people, the average man, woman, and child on the streets. Because of the conflict that the West have caused, these people can't work because there's no jobs. They're relying on humanitarian aid from Russia. We know that also has this massive knock-on effect because when the West was
okay, so comrades, this video you can find in the Proletarian TV. It is the YouTube channel of the CPGB ML. It was published 10 days ago. So I recommend everybody to watch this. It's very, very important, especially today in this time of this very, very furious propaganda.
And Dean's got his Twitter channel as well. You can follow him on Twitter.
If you
Good point. Yeah, I remember the Azov battalion was participating with the Hong Kong riots. That's an interesting point.
So they are in every place in the world where the U.S. imperialism needs them.
Yeah, and we know they do this, for example, with in the Middle East. They in Kazakhstan, for example, they used Islamic extremists from the Syrian war, from Iraq. They moved them also in the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia a few years ago. They were also bringing in Kurd fighters and all kinds of allies into that conflict. So yeah, they where they militarize people for war, they then use them and ship them around.
And what do you think? What will be the perspective for the world socialist movement? Because before this war, Russia collaborated with Cuba, collaborated with the socialist movements in Latin America. With some of the movements, anti-imperialist movement in First World, and now, when we can observe from beginning of the war this very aggressive offensive against Russia, offensive in the economic way, offensive in the propaganda. All the time, I am very pessimistic that they are using example of this war to destroy of the leftist movement, which before, for example, collaborated with Russia, for example, collaborated with the Russian media. I very often I was invited to make interview to Sputnik, and in the time when I was arrested by the Polish secret police in 7th July last year, uh, every media in Poland lied about me, and the only big media, which said truth, it was Sputnik. And I think that it is common for the leftist movement in all the Western Hemisphere. So, what do you think? What will be the future of the leftist movement in the Western countries?
Well, it's a big question. I think that there's a kind of big shift happening in social media. So, for example, Russia has now banned Facebook and Twitter. They have VKontakte, and you can substitute Google for Yandex. They have kind of Russian equivalents to the platforms that people use in the West. And I think that the more they attack Russia, for example, when they sanction the Russian central bank, try to block them from SWIFT, all these sanctions, what it's doing is it's cutting ties between Europe and Russia, which is bad for Europe. But exactly, Russia then gets even closer to China. Russia substitutes trade. All right, we don't need to sell it to Europe, we can sell it to China. They have a huge market in China which can absorb um, you know whatever Russia needs. So I think it's bad for Europe, but it's not necessarily bad for Russia and China and the rest of the world. It will be, obviously, there's a transition happening, so there will be turbulence and problems. But I think in the long run, it's going to strengthen the Russian side, because the more they sanction Russia, the less effective the sanctions become. And it's it's kind of across all fields. So with technology, if they ban media, Russian media, if they make it impossible for us to, use Twitter and Facebook and express the Russian point of view on these platforms, um, perhaps more and more people from the left in Europe, in America, in the West, for political reasons, they might start actually switching to the alternative platforms. and they're not only being created in Russia. You also have the sort of Republican wing in the U.S., like Donald Trump, trying to come up with alternatives to Twitter with Getter, and there's Rumble and Big Shoot and all these alternative platforms coming up. So I think that they're shooting themselves in the foot a little bit with, they're hurting their own monopoly by these bans and these sanctions. So I'm optimistic.
You see, I think that the sanction is proposed by the US, and the real loser of this sanction, it will be European Union, especially Germany, because it is not against Russia, it is against German economy, and also against Polish economy, because Polish economy is very, very close tie with German economy. So if there will be economic crisis, the crisis of the industrial production, because a lot of fabric or usine, what you say, fabric.
Factory?
Factories,
Factory,
yes.
factory.
Usine, it is in French. Factory, a lot of factories because in last 2 months I started to very restarted to learn French, because I would like to make some lesson on French language. So now I a little forget. I didn't recorded any English video, I think 1 month or more. So, it is U.S. considered Western European countries like competition, economic competition, and they are using this Russia example now to destroy the economy of Germany. So, but my question for you is: do you think that because I am living now in Western countries, and most of the media which I watch and the perspective which I watch, it is the Western perspective, and from this Western perspective they all the time inform that the economy of the Russia now it will be in big crisis, that the Russian army every year every day is losing the war, the Ukrainian heroes are winning and winning. And do you think that Putin, when he made this decision, it was mistake for him, or he knew about all these things, he knew that the Ukrainian army will be strong, that there will be strong sanction, but he knew, and he continued this operation because he knew that he will win.
I can't claim to have any idea what Putin knew or what what he thought then or what he thinks now. But I think in a real war, no one can. The plan will break down as soon as you start fighting. I don't think that it could have all been perfectly planned, but I think it was definitely planned. And it doesn't mean it goes exactly to plan, but I'm sure that they had, a hopeful scenario, and all kind of contingency plans for different scenarios that could happen. Um, yeah, I mean, they would hope for the quickest. What's in Russia's interest, I think, is to have the government of Kiev uh, agree, settle, and agree to be neutral with the minimum fighting possible and the minimum destruction possible. But the West and the hardliners in Ukraine seem to be very focused on fighting to the end, type thing, and not negotiating. So I don't know what Putin or Russia thought it would look like Um, the reality is now that they're stuck in. Obviously, the Western media, for from their point of view, for their morale, they will inflate the numbers in their advantage. Because the last thing they want for the Ukrainian army is to see how bad their situation is and how quickly the Russians are advancing, and how little time they have if they don't surrender. They don't want Ukrainians to hear that. So their side says the opposite. If you listen to the Russian side, it shows that things are advancing as planned, which is what they want their side to think. I don't know how true it is. I think that the Russians are advancing, and it could take a week or two, but I hope it will. I'm optimistic that they will, that things will settle after a while.
And what do you think about all these attempts to canceling people from Russia who are nothing to do with this war, with the artists, with the people from the sport, the footballers, and the other sportsmen from Russia. Now, if you are Russian, they try you totally cancel, censor. I don't know the young people who make they are studied in the Western countries. Now they have to can came back to Russia. This responsibility that they I think that it is not logic, because most of these people who are in the West, most of them are mentally Western guys. Most
Yeah,
of them are liberals, and
that's why they're in the West. Yeah,
yes, yes, they are in the West, but they have been attacked now by this West, which they loved. They loved these Western countries, and the Western countries attacked them.
poetic justice. I shouldn't have said that, but in a way, when yeah, I mean, it's a hard lesson, right? But they've aspired to be like the West, to try to follow the West model, and now the West model has become very Russophobic, in a way, kind of racist against them, and it doesn't make any sense. But it exposes one of the problems, that now they have this war jingoism, and it's like an online pogrom. I
Yes,
mean,
but it's difficult to not see this hypocrisy that the Western countries occupied Afghanistan 20 years, and it was not a problem for anybody to participate. England organized the Olympic Games in 2012, in the time when the British Army was in Afghanistan. So there is the war in the Muslim country, which is very very far, not problem. Where you have problem war in Ukraine and the white people are dying, this is problem. But
yeah,
maybe I don't understand something.
yeah. I mean, definitely by the media reaction in the West, I would say that this Ukraine is. I'm not sure I know why, but it's very important to them. It's clearly very important to them. And they've invested billions in sticking it to Russia in Ukraine and using Ukraine. So it's now their you know favorite place to look at. I mean, the war is going on in Yemen still, and
Nobody care.
no no one cares, even though the catastrophe there is much worse. Objectively speaking. the number of people suffering there is greater, and it's the situation is much more dire. But then in Ukraine,
I heard recently that in one book or in one article, Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote about his strategy. It was written in 1970s, but already in 1970s he said that the objective for the United States is to provoke the civil war in the Soviet Union when the Ukrainian and other nation of the Soviet Union will be fight against Russian. So Ukrainian will kill Russian, Russian will be killed Ukrainian, and from his perspective, from the American perspective, the Slavic nation, it's not necessary. Ukrainian, Belarusian, Russian, they not respect any of this nation. And the better solution for them is to provoke this war where any soldier from United States and any soldier from Great Britain will not die. It is the perfect situation, and it is why now they send a lot of troops, a lot of arms to Ukrainian, because they want that this conflict it will be not 1 week, not 1 month, it will be many years. It is this very cynic game.
yeah, I mean this policy of dividing the former Soviet Union, setting the different nationalities against Russia, is very old. You know, I mean they've been doing it for more than 100 years, I would say, trying to create these, foment these national identities or ethnic identities, separate from Russian people, whether it's with, the Chechens, for example, or recently with Kazakhstan, or now in Ukraine. Um, and yeah, it's divide and rule.
Russian-speaking people are being attacked in Poland now, in Gdynia, north of Poland. A restaurant run by an Armenian woman was demolished by Ukrainians. So this is this famous Ukrainian heroes. The Slava Ukraine, Geroyam Slava, Gero, it is hero in English language. So this is great heroes. They don't have courage to go to Donbass and fight with the Russian, but they have courage to destroy the restaurant of the Armenian woman.
Yeah.
I
Unfortunately, there's going to be more of this, unfortunately.
um,
The way things are going.
Okay, Comrade, I think that we already this is the very big subject, but today, if you want to something add to our conversation, it is the good moment. If no,
I'll just say it was good to talk again, and we'll see how this goes. We all hope for the best, and maybe we can talk again when we know more.
yes, now I would like to make a small announce that in last weeks I have been not very active in this channel because of three reasons. First reason, it was my conflict with my party, Polish Workers' Party. I am not longer member of Polish Workers' Party. I don't want to say here why, and maybe in the future I will say, but I think that it is not necessary in the time of this big crisis and the war in Ukraine. The Polish Workers' Party have a good position, so I hope that me and the comrades from this party will collaborate. But of course, a few weeks always when we have split in this in the Marxist party, this is a lot of energy. Second thing was this war. I was very active in Polish language. Published every day, one or two or three videos in Polish language when the war was started. But because of a lot of hatred against me and hated against my family, I decided that I stopped recording video in Polish language. And now I will be a little more active in this channel, Rebirth of Communism. Objective is not recording video in Polish because now every Poles they are searching the Russian spy, Russian troll, I don't know who. Of course, I am not spy, I'm communist, but communist who all my life I criticize NATO, and all my life when I criticize NATO, always they accuse me for something. First time I criticized NATO in 1999, in the time when the NATO bombarded the Yugoslavia, and I was accused that I support the genocide of the Albanian people in Kosovo. It was a lie, because it was not Albanian, it was not a Serb who killed Albanian, but Albanian who killed Serb. But I was accused of this, and every time when there is some war, I was already anti-Semite because I support Palestine. I am against women because I support the Afghan people against NATO, etc., etc.
Yeah. I mean, you're just a Jewish Bolshevik like me. We're just Jewish Bolsheviks. We're, we're the first to be targeted.
Okay, I will answer to this comrade.
Okay.
I'm
Is that Bhagat Singh on the profile picture?
What?
The profile picture of the previous commentary. Yeah, this is. I think this is Bhagat Singh.
So who is he? I don't
He's
know.
an Indian communist revolutionary, like one of the fathers of India. There's a really nice movie about him called The Legend of Bhagat Singh, an Indian movie about him.
Yes, Bhagat Singh. Read about him. Bhagat. I will search very quickly. Bhagat Singh.
Yeah, fair point. The reaction against China might be horrific. Yeah.
Wait. I will put this to other comrades. You have good memory for the faces. You can work to the police after the revolution. If you
Great.
well, Bhagat Singh. He's already.
Very, very important.
It's en français. It's in French. Okay, I will read it after. So, thank you, comrades. Indian communist, he was supposed to meet up with Stalin before he was executed. But not by Stalin, I hope. No. Okay, so I will now I will try 1 or 2 days in the weekend to make some videos. and conversation. Of course, the most important subject now is the Ukrainian and the Russophobia in the Western countries, but maybe also other subject. So see you guys.